This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a rad guest. She is an OG in the fantasy community from the Get Real with Kacey Kasem podcast and the creator of Sunday Dreamers Club. It's the one and only Kacey Kasem. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's an honor to have you on here. We go back a ways. I remember interacting with you, years ago, and then we first met at the National Fantasy Football Convention. Quite the event back in the day. It was a wild event, a lot of pros and cons to it, but it was cool to see people that you knew on the internet. It was kind of obviously pre-expo days, right? So it was fun. I remember seeing you for the first time. You had your look, you had your glasses, there's Kacey Kasem. So it was a ton of fun to meet you there. We followed up the next year with SportsCon, did the draft night out and everything. So it's an honor to have you on here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I mean, I am so glad that I could be on this show with you because, yeah, like you said, we've known each other for a while and we've gotten to experience a lot of cool stuff in the fantasy football industry. So being able to do that together has been pretty dope.
It's been fun. And I think that, you of all people, you're, similar to me, that we're just, we're ambassadors for this great game. We love fantasy football. We love the community. And so celebrating fantasy with you it's an honor. It's something I'm excited to do. So for listeners and viewers that are unfamiliar with your work, what is the Get Real with Kacey Kasem podcast? And what is the Sunday Dreamers Club all about?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, Get Real with Kacey Kasem. That's my podcast that I do. It's a behind-the-scenes look at the fantasy football industry, and I just interview people that are in the fantasy football space, whether that's behind the scenes or in front of the camera or whatever in between. I just love talking to people. When I first started in the fantasy football community and putting out content, I was really just trying to find out how to do stuff. Like, how do you start a podcast? How do you start writing? How do you do this? How do you do that? And so to be able to put out a podcast that kind of gives you like a blueprint of what certain people do, it's really cool. And it's really cool to be able just to like learn from all that. So that's why I put that podcast out. And so big project that I love, like it's my heart. And then Sunday Dreamers Club is my newest project, which is something I've been talking with my wife about for a while. It's kind of been in the process, but it's a fantasy football inspired t-shirt line that I have out there at sundaydreamersclub.com or over on Etsy, because that's where it's hosted right now. It's just starting. So there's a world of things that I want to do with it. But for right now, it's just a ton of fantasy football inspired t-shirts.
I love it. Lots of exciting things to go. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But obviously, with your passion for fantasy, you obviously, I'm sure, have a background in sports, right? In growing up, were you a big sports fan growing up? Who were your favorite teams, players growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I was a huge sports fan growing up. Like, my parents were huge sports fans. All the local teams in the Dallas area, we've been fans of forever. Especially the Dallas Mavericks when I was growing up. In basketball, my mom was a huge Dallas Mavericks fan. She was a massage therapist, so she got the pleasure of actually being able to massage some of the players on the team during that time. We'd get really good seats. It was a lot of fun. We'd go hang out. Those were just great memories that I had growing up. The Dallas Cowboys were great for a period of time when I was a child, but that's my team. Sadly, I don't remember those Super Bowls as well as I should. As a person who is with a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl in forever, you wish you could go and remember all the good stuff that was happening, not the bad stuff. But
it was a good run. No, those 90s were good to the Cowboys. But yeah, it's been a little barren ever since, huh?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But I mean, at the same time, I've seen so many players come through, and you had the great guys from the 90s that stick out, like Aikman, and you've got, I mean, Tony Romo was my life for a while. So like, I've seen all of the different, iterations of this team. So hopefully we can get back on track. But growing up, I was a big fan of like more so basketball players than I was football players, just because of my mom's relationship with the NBA.
Nice. So was that like Jason Kidd and those players, or what era were we
Like
talking
Derek
about?
Harper
Okay.
and all that kind of era. Like Derek Harper
Yeah.
was one of the guys that she was a massage therapist for.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
that little time period was pretty nice.
Nice, nice. I love that. So obviously, as a Cowboys fan, lots of heartbreaks. What was the biggest heartbreak you've experienced as a sports fan?
As a sports fan in general, it's funny because it's not a football moment, even though football is like my life and my number one sport. The thing that really got to me that I don't cry during sporting events usually, but I did cry during this. It was when the Rangers were in the World Series in 2011. The Texas Rangers ended up losing. There was one more strike they needed to win, and then there was a whole Nelson Cruz debacle with the ball going over his head and a triple being scored by Josh Freese, and like I don't know, it was a lot of stuff. And yeah, that was the moment where like my heart went from like, yes, we're gonna win this to like, oh, what just happened?
I can see that because like baseball's special for like
Yeah.
the World Series. It's a long drawn out process. There's so much you put into it. Like as a fan, when it comes to what you invest into it, then obviously that the suspense can be pretty intense at the end of a final game in a baseball series. So I can see that. So how about like if your favorite moment as a sports fan? What was the best moment you can think of when it comes to a sports moment?
Isn't this funny? So it's also not football related, but because I had such a strong relationship with my mom growing up, my mom passed when I was 22, and like like I said, the Dallas Mavericks were her team. And so when they won the championship in 2011, that was like that was another moment I did cry, but like goosebumps, crazy partying after it happened. Like I remember just having all my friends around me in that whole moment. But for my mom, that was like the biggest sports moment in my entire life.
That's special. I think that for a lot of people, their favorite moment is it's not just that moment. It's the nostalgia. It's what goes around it. So in a connection with your mom. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world that that would be what stands out to you. So when it comes to fantasy sports, when did you discover fantasy?
So I think I tell people all the time it was 2011, but I think it was 2012. Actually, it came up on Facebook the other day. One of the memories. That's how they call you out. So 2012, my friend Michael Dixon. Dixon was like, "Hey, I'm doing a 10. I have a 10-team ESPN fantasy football league, and we need one more person. And you're into football." And I'm like, I don't even know what fantasy football is. None of my friends played fantasy football except for I guess Dixon. Um, my parents did, my sister didn't, nobody I knew played. So I'm like, what is it? So he explained it to me, told me that I would really be good at it. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'll give it a try. Sure, why not? I mean, I hang out with you guys anyway. We're already watching football, whatever. And then you know how it usually goes. Like you either like do super well or you like just suck completely your first year. And I ended up winning, right? The first year. So of course I got hooked after that. So that's where it started with that 10-team redraft league that I was in.
And it was that the competition with the friends that hooked you. Is that what that was?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely that. It hooked me so much that like the following season I decided to start a fantasy football league for my friends that are women. So all I could get, like I got my sisters in it, my wife's in it now, a ton of my best friends. We've been doing it for years and years, but that second year I started playing, or that I was playing fantasy football, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to get more people involved. I wanted to get my friends involved because it was just a great way to get everybody together and friends that weren't friends with other friends, but we had this common thing now.
And you dove all in because when I say that you're an OG in the community, it's because it goes back to like those days where like didn't you just dive into content and get interacting on forums and all that kind of stuff? Like whose content did you consume early on and what was that activity like? Because again, I recall that you were just like really involved with meeting people on Twitter and that kind of stuff early.
Early, yeah. It was funny to see, like, to just kinda think back to that time period because it was such a nostalgic time for me and what I was doing, like, consuming content. Her fantasy football was probably number 1, top of my books, greatest podcast for me to listen to at that time. All I did was watch their videos, listen to their podcast, consume their content. That was it. Was Derek Brown was one of the first people I met in this industry. So Derek Brown's content, I was always a fan of. Even like we kind of started out at the same time, like dipping our toes into like just the fantasy space, and just to see how much he's grown over these years is just crazy to see. So like to be able to see people just keep working their way up and just getting better at their craft. I just love seeing that. And your normal OGs like Matthew Berry and the fantasy footballers, you can't say, I mean, everybody's stumbled across it at one point or another. And that's definitely stuff that was on my radar. I was consuming Dynasty content and not even playing Dynasty. So like Dynasty Nerds and Under the Helmet and all this stuff. And here we are.
That's amazing. It's amazing. So back to like your, playing fantasy. Is that women's league? Is that like your main home league, or do you have another league that's like your main home league at this point?
No, that women's league is my main home league.
Nice.
I mean, it is for most of us actually, just because of the camaraderie and the fact that we try to do live drafts and we try to make things enjoyable. It's not just like going through the motions like some drafts seem. Live drafting, I mean, we'll get into that, but just that league, that it means so much to me, and the fact that like my family's in it, and then like best friends, like that's just, and I'm the commish still, and it's changed over the years, and we've had new people come in because people don't like this app, or people don't want to play anymore because they've got a life. Okay, cool. So we've had to mix it up over the years, but the core people are still there. So yeah, that's my home league.
That's awesome. Yeah, those live drafts are special. They're always special, depending no matter where you're doing it and who you're doing it with. It's just a special element to the fantasy experience. But they're definitely better when it's a group that you really love playing with. So a home league like that, like that's wonderful. I love to hear that kind of stuff. You guys do have any other traditions you do with your league, or like last place punishments? Maybe you don't do a last place punishment, but are there any favorite last place punishments that you have?
Yeah, we don't really do a last place punishment, but the same woman probably gets last place every year. Her punishment is, I don't know how our punishment is. We have to play with her every year, and so I guess we get one extra win or two extra wins. I guess that's how that works out. No, but I love those ladies. They're great, even if they don't set their lineups all the time. Back to this traditions and last place things. I have seen people in my town have to dress up funny and stand on the side of the road and hold up a sign that says that they suck at fantasy football. And when I see that, it just makes me happy, because I'm like, we don't do that in our league, but it's really cool to see that there's other leagues out there that are as involved as our league, that really have fun things in play. That makes it just worthwhile.
That's awesome. Who's your biggest rival in a fantasy league?
Probably in the home league that I'm in with the women, it would have to be either my wife. Well, it's probably my wife, because first of all, we live together, right?
Yeah.
She's really good at fantasy football, and this is her only league. So she like really pays attention and makes sure, and so she's won it, I think, probably the same amount of times that I have, and I have not won it in a very long time. And my sister's also in that league. She's getting better. Like every year she gets better at fantasy, and it's just like awesome to see. So we always trash talk, back and forth. So that, I'd say both of those people are my biggest rivals.
Nice. Do you have favorite settings and preferred formats in fantasy? I know there was a time where you did not play Dynasty. I remember when you
Mhm.
dove into it.
Yeah.
What are your favorite settings and formats in fantasy at this time?
Yeah, I really am a Dynasty fan now. I do love redraft still, but I'm more of a redraft live in person kind of person. I don't really like to be in a redraft league if I'm not going to get to draft in person. So, hey, but with Dynasty, yeah, I like just your normal. I'm kind of vanilla, kind of basic with the 12 teams. I like Superflex. Or two quarterback, but super flex, just because if you have a crappy quarterback and you have a good quarterback, at least you could plug somebody else in there and you're all right, I guess. No, it really, PPR obviously is something that I am a big proponent of. I know half point is fun, standard is fun. Everything's, been changing. There's so many different things, so many different settings out there, but I like just keeping it kind of basic.
And the truth is, yeah, there's a million different settings, but the foundation it's the league, right? It's the people you play
Hmm.
with that make the game fun, no matter what the settings are, for the most part, right?
Right. Exactly.
So you discovered the fantasy community back in 2011, 2012-ish. Um, what was it that inspired you to get just more involved in the community?
I keep thinking back to that. I do that a lot when I ask people this question, and I'm like, how exactly, what did I do exactly? But I know that like the open bar back in the day was very important to me because Gabe and J Mike with the open bar were very instrumental in where I am today, getting me to where I am today. They gave me a platform to kind of jump in and start talking to people. I wasn't putting out content. I just wanted to know more. I just wanted to get more knowledge, and getting to come on those shows and ask questions to fantasy football analysts and people that are immersed in that world. Like, it was so awesome for me to ask about tight ends or ask about like if I started a dynasty league, what should I do and all this other stuff. That was really a great part of that. Just interacting, and like the Scott Fishbowl kind of opened it up for everything. I didn't realize it was going to be as important to my journey as it has been, but like just after that first year, it just continued to help me flourish.
Yeah, no, you've been embraced in this community for many years, and I think it's your passion for it, right? You put so much in connecting with people and interacting. I think it's just been an organic thing from my perspective, witnessing like what you've experienced, what your journey has been like. Now, we did interact prior to the 2018 National Fantasy Football Convention, but I remember again, meeting you there. That was a crazy event. It was in Fort Worth. It was supposed to be Dallas, but in Fort Worth. What were you thinking heading into that event? What were your goals for that event? What were you anticipating you'd experience going to an event like that?
It was a lot different than I had experienced or had thought it was going to be. When we got, my brain was it was going to be like really fantasy football content creating and drafting and fantasy football related products and people that embraced fantasy football, athletes that embraced fantasy football. Um, that's what I was looking forward to. Kind of like what a modern day another event that we have. That's
Yeah.
kind of what my brain envisioned, and I know that that was kind of wishful thinking because like it kind of spelled out what it was, but my brain was like, I want it to be what I want it to be. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how that was.
But it was cool because we got to meet a lot of people down there, right?
Did.
There was, I mean, it was Matthew
Mhm.
Berry was there, the footballers
Mhm.
were there, Liz
Yep.
Loza, Stefania Bell,
Yes.
Phil. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people there
So
and so
many
many
people there.
athletes
Yeah.
too. But yeah, there was some things missing. You're right.
Right.
And when you mentioned that modern day event, it's probably one reason why people like us love that expo so much because
Yeah.
it's everything we wanted a destination draft or a fantasy experience to be like, right?
Mhm. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be like that, not like a booth that tells me I can change my electricity company with them if I want or whatever, like I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
need fantasy football related products. And I know that they were there, and I made an effort to go and meet as many people in the space that I could. Like, it was great. We were I was just talking to like I said, Derek Brown, and then Liz Lowe's was like, where'd you get vodka from? I'm like, standing there with my vodka soda. She's like, there's a bar here? And I was like, yeah, like to be able to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was just it was just great being able to actually experience that. And then, being able to draft with people with draft night out and everything. I
Yes.
mean, just getting to meet people was just the best part of the whole experience.
Yes, I would say that the next year at SportsCon, that draft night out was really special because
Yeah.
you got to meet a lot of great people in that room, and we
Hmm.
had a lot of fun. We were in the league with you, and I think that was a ton of Katie Flowers just slapping those stickers on the wall on the draft board. Great times, good memories from my perspective. Coming down from Seattle with a couple of friends, we made the most of it, and I thought it was good. But you're right, the expo is everything we dreamed it would be for sure. So when it comes to like creating content, like getting involved, what was it that inspired you to go that next level when it comes to writing and that kind of thing?
Well, so I had been thinking about not really about writing or putting out content or anything for a while. I was just kind of like giving my opinions on Twitter, right? That's what I enjoyed doing, was just kind of just talking on Twitter and doing all that. And my friend Tim Turner, he was trying to work on some sort of podcast and wanted me to come on with Liz Loza and kind of get his podcast down the way he wanted to. Well, it didn't end up working out that night. So during that time, he was like, "Why don't you put out content?" By the way, he was the one who was kind of asking me, like, for the first time, "Why don't you put out content?" I don't know. That's what I said. I don't know. Uh, just haven't thought about doing it. I consume it. I don't never think about actually putting it out. And so I posted that on Twitter. I had posted that Tim said that, and Ryan Hallam with Fighting Chance Fantasy reached out to me and was like, "Well, would you like to try to write? Do you want to, I'll give you a platform you can do." Cool. All right, cool. All right, cool. So I talked to my wife about it just to run it by her just to see, do I have time to do this? Because I already knew it was going to take a little bit of time. And yeah, ended up signing on with Ryan to write for Fighting Chance Fantasy. And so that's kind of how it started.
And then eventually you had an opportunity to join the team at Fantasy Footballers. What was that experience like for you?
Oh yeah, that was really cool. I mean, the fantasy footballers, obviously, most people, if you play fantasy football, you know who they are. I had been a huge fan of theirs for a while. Like you had said, we met them and we were able to have conversations with them, and they were really cool dudes. So when I saw that there was openings for writers, that they were looking for writers, I was like, okay, I'd seen them before, but I always kind of was like, I'm not that great at writing. Whatever, always some excuse. I've got anxiety, so it was always like, I don't want to press submit. But I was like, whatever, grow up, do it. So I did it. I submitted it, didn't think anything of it. Was like, whatever. If I don't hear back, cool. If they say no, cool. But they didn't say no. They said yes. They said yes to me. So they were like, yeah, we met you. We know you. You're a good fit with the brand. And that's what we look for. Yeah, you want to, so I couldn't work for the rest of the day. Obviously, I was in shock when they told
Yeah.
me in the middle of the day. I was like, shut it down. I'm done for the day. But it was really, really awesome to be able to work with them, that whole team over there, all the writers, the editors, everybody. They're all such great people over there.
Yeah, amazing people at the Footballers. I'm sure that was a wonderful experience for you. Later on, you did decide to put a pause on writing, and then you started your podcast. What was it that inspired that switch or that change of your path?
Yeah, so I was writing with both Fighting Chance Fantasy and with the Fantasy Footballers at the same time for a little bit. Then I was like, okay, I need to kind of cut it back a little bit. I don't have a whole lot of, but I had brought this podcast into the mix at the same time that I was writing for both of those sites. Started the podcast, and it, it's quickly became one of those things. I was like, I want to focus my time on this podcast. This podcast is something I'm really proud of, and I really want to get behind this. And writing will be there whenever, but this podcast, I really need to get it off the ground. I need to get the ball rolling. I need to get more people listening to it, more people interested in it. And so I had stopped writing for Fighting Chance Fantasy, and then I slowly transitioned to stop writing from the Fantasy Footballers as well, just because I was being spread in so many different directions. And that's fine and dandy if you have time to be spread in all different directions, but I didn't have the time because I worked, my job from 8 to 5, and then I'd come home and try to write, try to do a podcast the way that I want to do the podcast, make sure it's edited correctly, do all of that on my own, and have deadlines for writing and all that other stuff. It was a lot. And we were not making any money off of it. Like the podcast wasn't, I was, Fighting Chance, I wasn't. And it was like, that's a lot of effort for time that I could be spending with my wife, spending with
Yeah.
my dogs, spending, doing life stuff, going to the grocery store. So, I just kind of had to put priorities into play. And I was like, all right, I'll come back to writing at some point. But right now, I just want to focus on my podcast.
I love it. And you've done a great job with it for sure. I was, you know, pleasure to be a guest at one point. You've interviewed so many wonderful people, and it's such an organic conversation. It's a fantastic podcast. I highly recommend it to everyone out
Thank you.
there. Let's talk about your decision though. Your big decision to try to dive full in. Like I mean, it's so inspiring to honestly to hear someone Like say, I'm gonna quit this job I've had for a long time. Good job. And I want to do what what my dreams are. I want to try to make this work. Talk to me about that decision to chase your dreams and go all in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, this wow, my brain can't even wrap itself around what is happening right now with me. I so for a while I worked at this job in government for 13 years. I worked for the county. Awesome job for the most part. Awesome job. I mean, I had benefits, I had PTO that was awesome. And I would get a raise every year and it was nice. It was nice but after 13 years of doing the same thing over and over, my job was checking other people's work to make sure that they did their job right. And it gets monotonous and it gave me time to listen to podcasts for 8 or 9 hours a day because I wasn't using my brain, as my wife said. I could focus on listening to podcasts because I wasn't really doing anything, right? And it was kind of just being stuck in an office all day, no windows, not talking to anybody all day, just being by myself is not really what I was envisioning my life at 40. Wasn't I don't know what I was envisioning my life at 40, but that wasn't it. So before I turned 40, 39, we're in Oklahoma and we're camping out and we're talking about this is so awesome to be able to do this because my wife works from home for the most part and she's able to do what she wants, work from where she wants, right? For the most part. And we were like, wouldn't this be cool if we could do this whenever we wanted? Like I could work whenever I wanted, wherever I wanted, right? That would be cool. But that's always just a wish, right? Like growing up, I never thought that was a thing you could do. I never thought you could actually live your dreams or do things you wanted to do when you got older. I saw my parents doing stuff they didn't like doing until my mom found stuff she liked, you know? And my dad, I don't know if he ever found anything he liked, but we talked and talked and talked and had a nice talk about it. And we were like, okay, we're going to Africa in December. Maybe not the best time to quit my job right now. Maybe wait till we're done with like the big trips. And then we were like, okay, so my birthday is February 7th. I'm turning 40. Let's put in my 2 weeks notice, and then not work on my birthday. Like we're done. And so that's what we decided. We both decided. I mean, I decided, but it's really hard for me as a person that struggles with generalized anxiety disorder to do something like that. I mean, I see my therapist so much, especially at the beginning of this new journey. I was talking to her all the time because I'm like, this is a lot to have on your plate because you go from having a job where you make money and do all this stuff to what is my next what's next, and I really honestly jumping into it with just quitting my job and now I'm kind of like trying to figure things out has been great, but I am that person always has that like I don't want to let people down. I don't want to let myself down. I'm not bringing in money. I don't want my wife to feel like, I'm just being a mooch. I don't want to feel like this. And it's just a lot. And then like, how do you set your own schedule up to do this? How many sites is too many sites to write for? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Will it be successful? Will it not? And honestly, if it's not successful, I'm trying my hardest to make everything be as successful, putting it out there, putting it into the atmosphere. But if it's not, I have a job that I can always go back to. I can get a part-time job and do fantasy football part-time. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out, but I mean, I really want it to work out. You know what I mean? So I'm blessed to be able to do that. I have this opportunity where we saved for this. Like we have been saving, like I've been saving forever just for a rainy day. And now I'm kind of like, well, this is kind of my rainy day. I need to get into the sun, I need to get out there and do stuff. It's as you can tell, I'm getting really like, because it's
Yeah.
like so emotional for me, but like in a good way.
No,
It's a lot, but it's a lot in a good way. And I'll look back on this, I know, in a few years and be like, there was no reason to be feeling like that.
I love it. I love your attitude with it. I love your perspective. I mean, it takes so much to put yourself in that position. I'm so proud of you to make that decision. I mean, there's so many people that that are also proud of you and supporting you and excited for you. Your perspective on like, hey, if this doesn't work, I can always go do something else. Like that's a great place to be in because because you're doing what you want to do right now,
Hmm.
putting the cards out there, see what happens, right? And so I think that's awesome for you to do. Huge fan of every step you're making. I think it's going to be great. And I think, yeah,
Thank
in
you.
a few years you're going to look back, and I think you're going to be really happy that you did this, and maybe wonder why you didn't do it sooner, right?
Right. I'm hoping.
Hopefully,
I hear everybody's
hopefully.
success stories and people say, I felt this way. So this is normal. It's okay.
Yeah, and again, worst case, right? Like
Right.
worst case, you just go, you can fill those gaps somewhere.
Right.
So it's exciting. It's exciting. I'm excited for you. Again, so proud of what you're doing. I think it's awesome. And obviously you are now doing a little bit more writing too. You've joined with South Harmon, Rotoballer, Fantasy Six Pack. How are those experiences going so far?
Yeah, it's going great so far. So with Roto Baller, I've been writing more with them than I have so far with like Six Pack. I haven't done anything with yet, but we're talking. We're in talks, right? I've got all the stuff situated. I know what I'm doing. It's just as the season gets closer, then I think the content's going to pick up for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, with Roto Baller, I've been writing not a bunch, but I've been writing more than I would usually. Now that I have the time, especially tight end content, just because like it's, we all know tight ends are basically like the same, except for like a couple of guys. So it's very easy. No. But yeah, so that, and then with South Harmon, those guys, I mean, they reached out to me and were like the nicest guys ever. And I didn't really know too much about them. I knew about them from the expo, but I didn't really know anything about them. Some of the dopest guys that I know. And yeah, Mike and I with South Harmon, we're going to be putting out a podcast, Dynasty podcast, with new people to Dynasty and
Yeah.
people that have been in the Dynasty game for a while, kind of pairing them up for a Dynasty Best Ball League that has a podcast associated with it over there. So we're working on that right now. It's just kind of hard getting new people. Like
Yeah.
they either don't want to play or like, oh no, I played Dynasty, so sorry. And then yeah, I mean, just I'm gonna start writing with them again or them soon. The draft's coming up. I'm gonna be on the South Harmon draft stream during for 2 nights, I believe. And yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going. I'm just having fun getting back into writing because it's been a while,
I love it. That's awesome. What has been your biggest challenge, in this journey for you?
The biggest challenge in this journey is just like trying to keep myself motivated, trying to tell myself that, you didn't quit your job for no reason. Try to tell myself that, it's going to get better for me. And I have my good days. And then I have the days where I'm like, life's coming at you fast, right? But everybody does. So I just have to that's been the biggest part is, and also like just working from home is a lot different than working in an office. And setting my own schedule is a lot different than having somebody tell me what to do. And so, like, I have deadlines and stuff, which is fine, but I have to be able to tell myself, like, what day am I going to work on this? And what time am I going to do this? And you have a podcast to stay. Are you going to be able to do that as well? So, that very first part of this brand new journey, that was really hard for me. I had to kind of sit down and figure out, like, I need to list things out. It's better for me to be able to cross stuff out. So, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very good at time management, and I'm a procrastinator, and I procrastinate but worry about the things I have to do instead of just doing them and feeling better. So that's kind of the hard stuff that I've had to deal with.
But you know these things about yourself, so you
Yeah,
you can kind of set up those goals to kind of rein
uh-huh.
it in, and I
Yeah,
love that. It's best to be aware, right, of those things
yes.
than just
Oh
to
yeah.
be unaware, because then nothing gets done. But I think that you're gonna get this for sure. Now you obviously you've been a big advocate for mental health and anxiety. Do you have any tips for people that also kind of deal with some of the anxiety type of things that you've dealt with?
Yeah. Okay. It's gonna sound funny. Some of the stuff that I'm gonna say is probably like duh, but like I'm the type of person that just ignores the right there in your face stuff. I'm like, whatever, that's silly. I'm not gonna do it. But no, going outside, taking walks, I mean, has been monumental for my mental health. Listening to music obviously also helps a lot. I got my vitamin D levels checked and they were low. That's helped with my mood. So, like, just the little things that you can do, going to bed at a decent hour, not drinking during the weekdays, like all of these things, these like lifestyle choices that you can make to kind of calm your, because I'm like, I've tried everything, right? Except for the easy stuff, the quote
Mm,
unquote easy stuff, the stuff that's right
yeah.
there in front of your face. I'm like, okay, I take medication, I go to therapy, I do meditation, I do all that stuff. But what else can I add to this to kind of calm myself down? And I even started a podcast, right? I started a podcast with the anxiety. My therapist was like, why did you do that? And my thought was, if I can do it, it'll help me get over this anxiety that I have. The
Yeah.
same thing with going to the airport. I used to have anxiety constantly about going through security. Like what? Like I packed a gun in my, like I would know, I don't own a gun. So I'm like,
Yeah.
or whatever, you got drugs on you. I don't have drugs. So, but my brain is just going like, what are they going to find? They're going to be like, oh, you have
Yeah.
4 ounces of liquid and you're only, I'm going to be late now.
Yeah.
And my brain would just spin like that. I'll be late. But the more you do it, like, there you go. You're getting yourself more comfortable. The more reps you get, the more comfortable you get. And it's helped me out so much to be able to just talk to other people. Talking is so great, and talking
That's
to other
awesome.
people. And that's helped me out. You can tell I'm still a high strung individual, but I have better coping strategies now.
And that's the thing about the podcast. Yeah, I mean, obviously, hard to overcome the things that are in the way of doing that. But at the same time, it's got to be therapeutic for you to connect with people and to talk to people and to hear their
Hmm.
stories and to hear how not everything's perfect, right, in
Right.
people's lives, and right, like you connect with people through that platform, and you do it in a way where it's a natural conversation, as opposed to you know you know not real. I guess it's so authentic, and so I think that there's probably a therapeutic benefit for you to do what you found your passion, your love is.
100%. I mean, it is. It is so therapeutic for me. And I'll have guests on that I'm like, why are you on my show? You're like huge. And they have some of the same issues that I have, or some of the same, they stumbled over the same stuff that I have. And I'm like, okay. And they were able to overcome that. I can do that. I can do that. It might be a little harder for me. It might take a little longer for me, but I can do that. I just have to have this positive mindset. And so, yeah.
And the coolest thing is that there's listeners listening to that are also being impacted, by it all too. And I'm sure that's what it's all about for you, is right, is helping others,
Yes.
hear the journey, hear the story,
Oh, yeah.
relate, and find comfort in that. So hats off to you.
Definitely.
I love everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the Sunday Dreamers Club again. Where are you finding your inspiration? I know that with Fantasy Football Unlimited, I did a bunch of shirts in 2023. We'll be doing some more in 2024. It's fun for me. Like,
Mhm.
I love the design aspect. Where are
Mhm.
you finding your inspiration? Because there's a ton of great things that you've put together. In fact, I just recently had a conversation with John Bosch, and he mentioned a shirt that you made, about having all your leagues on one platform,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
So I love that
Yeah.
people are kind of like, quoting your shirts and your designs. Where are you getting your inspirations?
You know, I've been one of those people that like ideas just pop into my head and I jot them down. I'm one of those people that just constantly has like running list going. I've got paper copies of stuff and things in my phone that I just jot stuff down. And a lot of those, like the one about the platform and stuff, is just like my experiences in fantasy football. What has really been my experience, or what are some experiences I've seen people deal with? Like veto the veto, and trade. No trading vetoes, because like who
Yeah.
likes trade vetoes? I mean, not me. But different people, different flavors, different thoughts. So my whole thing is play fantasy football the way you want to play fantasy football, and so I've got short ideas for all different kinds of ways people play. Some people like kickers, some people don't. T-shirts relating to like different positions. Just it's kind of just whatever inspires me. It's just from my experiences, honestly, and then just what I've seen other people have to deal with over the years. Things people have said to me. Just kind of keep the temperature gauge on what's popular with what's going on right now, and just keep that going. But yeah, the inspiration is just the fantasy football world.
I love it. And then you got new stuff coming out all the time, so it's fun. And I can definitely tell the community is loving it and appreciating
Yeah,
it.
I thank
So
them so much for that. Like my whole thing was like, I love buying t-shirts. Like my whole closet's t-shirts, and they're all t-shirts that have sayings.
Yeah.
stupid stuff on them or whatever, just to get kind of conversation starters. Because I'll wear a shirt from my line out in public, and people will be like, "That's a funny shirt," or "That's so real," Because I'll be like, "Don't tell my wife I joined another fantasy football league," because that happens with me. She's like, "Really? You don't need another fantasy football league? Why are you drafting in April? It's April." So all these
I
things.
love it. You put
Yeah,
put it on a shirt and people relate to it, and
exactly.
yeah, it's been fun to see. And obviously, talking about that community, how much has the fantasy football community meant to you over the years?
Everything. They have meant everything to me. I never in a million years thought a group of people from the internet were going to be that important to me, but they are. The fantasy football community is huge, and there's so many people in it. There's people that don't know I exist, and there are people I don't know exist in the fantasy football community. But that's the cool part about it is you kind of just start getting more people that you know, and this guy knows this guy who knows that gal, who knows this, person over here, and you start making these connections. You see the community kind of get together whenever tragedy happens in someone else's life, or whenever something like that, like if there's a natural disaster, someone passes. Like, we are about building each other up and helping each other out, and not looking at each other like you're my competition or anything. Because, okay, sure, some people might be your competition, whatever, but they can still be your friend, and they can still be important to you. The community for me is just, they've been so, I wouldn't be where I am without them. They know that. I mean, I'm a person of the people. I try to like let them know I'm just like you, just like, we're all like in love with the same game of fantasy football. So the fact that everybody's just so helpful and so charitable, it's just A plus to see.
Yeah, it's a incredible group of people, like from every corner of the country, every corner of the world these days, all walks of life. So much variety in the people in it, but so many common passions and loves that people share together. So I too, I would say that it's mind blowing to think where this has come from. Like, again, you think about Twitter back in the you know 20 20 teens to where it is now, and obviously the expo has been huge for that. Talk to me about your experience with the fantasy football expo.
Yeah, I mean, I bring up the Fantasy Football Expo whenever I can. Not like affiliated. I'm not sponsored by. I'm not any. I always say like I sound like a walking ad for them, but it's just been such a great experience. Like, what Bob has going with the Fantasy Football Expo is everything that I could have imagined and more from those other events that we were at. Like, this is what I wanted. To be able to be at a place where you just get to hang out with people who like fantasy football, who know what fantasy football is, who know what dynasty is or IDP is or PPR or whatever. They know like stuff that we think, you and I think that's like basic stuff. But like, no, my friends don't know anything about fantasy football. But to get around my online friends in real life and talk fantasy football, talk just how you talk about each other's podcasts and just like how are things been going, catching up. It's just been a great experience. The first year I went, God, how many years did it go? I don't know. I went the first year that I went, my sister ended up showing up for the Saturday. So that was really cool. But the experience for me on that first one, I was going through a lot of stuff, and it was just kind of like, I was there, but I wasn't really there. Like, I was checked out. So, but the second year that I went got a lot better. My wife went with me. My dad ended up surprising me and showed up at the expo. It was a really awesome experience getting to meet people. I got to meet even more people. Some of my best friends in this industry were there, just like, and meeting new people to come on my podcast. And like, my first time checking out their work is there. I'm like, show me your podcast. Like, let me see your videos. Let me, just getting to meet more people, getting to kind of like share this experience with so many different people was awesome. Got to be a part of the women's panel as well.
Yeah.
And then the next year got to be a part of the women's panel as well. My dad showed up again. My wife was there. I got to be on the Queen's Classic draft. So that was awesome. It's just been such a great experience. And I just look forward to it every year. Get to hang out with my friends, meet up with my friends, and just have a great time, party it up. And I love it.
It is better every year too. Again, with the connections that you make, it's more like a family reunion with a family
Mhm.
that you love, right?
100%. It is a family reunion, class reunion with people you like. It's it's summer camp for us. It gets the season
Yeah.
started. It's just yeah, it's all of that. It's just an amazing time. Like definitely check it out if you're into fantasy football. Doesn't matter if you make content or you consume content or whatever. If you love fantasy football, then that's the place for you.
Canton, Ohio, every August.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. It's the best. So can't recommend it enough. Another thing that you are as passionate about more as anybody on this planet is the Scott Fish Bowl. You are one of the world's greatest advocates for the Scott Fish Bowl. It means so much to you. It's clear in everything you do and say. How did you first get into Scott Fish Bowl? And talk to me about that experience ever since.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly the year. 2014 maybe. I don't know, but one of the earlier, not early, but one of the earlier Scott Fish Bowls.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Uh, it was Will Ferrell. I don't remember too much about it except for I won because of her fantasy football. So I was a fan for the first few years I played in the Scott Fish Bowl, just a person that consumed content. And her fantasy football was the way for me to get into the Scott Fish Bowl. They did a contest. I entered the contest. I won. And from there, it's just kept on every year. I get into the Scott Fish Bowl and I start doing like 3-hour raps for charity to donate to Fantasy Cares. And the potathon happens and I go on there and everybody, yeah, exactly. And you go in and you get to just hang out and listen to other, like just watch it all day. Like that's what I do. I just sit there and just watch it all day. It's just a great time. And oh man, yeah, I can't say enough. Oh, it's great.
And we've hit another level of Scott Fish Bowl with these live events. You hosted last year in Dallas. You got another one coming up this year. Talk to me about the live SFB experience and what it takes to host. Because I hosted the Seattle the first year that they did live drafts. It's a lot.
It
So
is a
talk
lot.
to me about that experience for you.
Yeah, so they approached me and asked if I would be willing to be in charge of the Scott Fish Bowl draft in Dallas since I'm pretty close to that area. And I said, yeah, because I want to have a live draft in Dallas. And I don't care if I have to be the one that puts it on. I actually like putting things on. I like doing these kind of things. I like running live drafts. So yeah, we got that. I thought the hardest part was going to be finding a place to do it though, because all the places I had reached out to wanted a lot of money. They didn't really care that it was for charity. They had some crazy like number you had to hit when it came to like food and drinks. But Brian, who works over with the community beer company, he actually is in the Scott Fish Bowl, and he's like, "Oh,
Nice.
duh! Like, let's do it here." Boom, and that's how it happened. We're actually going to be there again this year, so that's super rad. And going into that live draft, doing that, we did a silent auction because of the raffle rules in Texas and all that stuff. But silent auction actually did really well. It was really awesome to have all those donations for Fantasy Cares. We had so many subscriptions to fantasy football websites. I think those were the big gets in the auction, not the merch, not the helmets and the jerseys and the fantasy footballers hats, but like actual subscriptions to this website and subscriptions. So it was really awesome to see more people get involved in other sites, under other content creators, learning about other content creators, kind of spreading the word that way too. Live drafts were a blast. We had 4 different drafts. We had our own bar upstairs. The only really problem that I found was like because the microphone was like new, all the setup up there was new, that we had audio issues. So that made it hard. And drafting live while you're running an event, as you would know, is not the easiest. So this year I'm going to actually go to the Houston draft and hopefully be able
Nice.
to draft there and just run the Dallas one with Brian. And hopefully we should have 4 again this year and just have a big party up there. And it was such a blast. Everybody loved it, and getting to know people that live like 10 miles down the
Yeah.
road. Super dope to know that many people live around here. That was so cool.
That's one of my favorite parts about the Scott Fish Bowl live event because it's like a mini concentrated expo, but it's so cool because so much can come from it because it's your local community. A lot of people are you don't realize how many people are close to. And Dallas is very rich when it comes to fantasy content creators and NFL content creators. So that must have been a lot of fun, just seeing all these people and meeting new people. And I'm sure it'll be extra fun to go to Houston, but then also do Dallas. You're
Mhm.
going to mix up with a lot of people. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like, we have, like, I mean, Dallas has like Bob Harris, Debro's there. Like, Ray GQ, Ray
Yeah.
Garvin, he's in the Dallas area. And then like Jody Smith down in Houston was at the Dallas draft last year. And now he's running, co-running the draft in Houston. And that's one of my really good buds in this industry. So it'll be cool to get to go down and hang out with some people down there in Houston.
Yeah, no, it's so exciting. In all the new cities, it's amazing. They're doing so much fantasy cares and the SFB, and I mean it's pretty awesome what's going on. So it's very exciting. Speaking of exciting, let's do a few rapid fire questions. I'll just throw
Okay.
out some questions. Let me know what first comes to mind. The answers don't necessarily have to be rapid, but we'll go with it. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
I enjoy most is just getting to know more people. That's my favorite part, like the aspect of making friends in this industry. I know that sounds silly that to some people, like, but to me and to you, like, we know the friendships and the camaraderie, that's my favorite thing. And just being able to do my podcast where I can talk and find out more about people, that's my favorite part.
I love it. When did the nickname Kacey Kasem first stick?
Maybe I would say maybe freshman, sophomore year in college. One of my friends, Caleb, just called me Kacey Kasem one day, and then he continued to call me Kacey Kasem, and then more people started calling me that, and then I just kind of, all right, I didn't give myself a nickname, somebody else did. I was finally happy to have a nickname, and yeah, it kind of just stuck, and then I made my Twitter handle DKC Kasem, and now I can't go by my last name. Now I'm just stuck as Casey Kasem, and I like
Who's
it.
that?
So
Who's that? No, it's your identity, and I think it's fantastic. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
yeah, I really enjoy live music, going to concerts, super dope. Traveling, like I said, we went to Africa in December. We went to Zimbabwe. So traveling is one of my favorite things. We're going to Paris to see Taylor Swift.
Nice.
For our anniversary. That's a like you heard it here first kind of thing.
That's awesome.
We were able to do that because it's surprisingly cheaper to go out of the country to see Taylor Swift than it is to see her in the United States of America. Uh, so we were able to do that. So I mean, I was refreshing the app for tickets, and I finally got floor tickets for like $5.50 each, and I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
wow, that is gonna work. That is going to work. So yeah, traveling, going live music, and I like to go like thrift store shopping. I like to resell items. I like to buy items for me because I like some of like old lady, windbreakers and stuff. That's my jam. Uh, those are basic. Hanging out with my wife and my dogs. Obviously, I got two dogs that are just amazing. So yeah, being able to like travel with them to do road trips. We went on an RV road trip back in 2020 and just went. It was great, and we brought the dogs, and yeah, that's what I like to do.
I love it. I love it. I have so many questions coming, in on my head from this. So what's your favorite vacation you ever been on?
My favorite vacation that I've ever been on, I would probably say we went to Italy on our honeymoon. That's probably the best vacation experience that I've had. Africa was awesome. Like that was a trip of a lifetime. Nothing will ever live up to that. But the time that we spent together in Italy, it was just us. And when we were in Zimbabwe, it was my friend, her fiance that's from Africa, and then his family and everything. And so it wasn't as an intimate time of going around and
Sure.
visiting places that we wanted to visit as it was when we were in Italy. But Italy, we just traveled up and down. It was great. We took the train and stayed in Airbnbs and ate great food and experienced a flood and Venice. First flood of whatever, and it was like, nope, we're out of here. It was a great time though. All the memories we made.
Okay. What's the best Taylor Swift album?
1989. I'm not the biggest Taylor Swift fan. My wife is, but 1989 is like that album that like, around, I don't know. She was listening to it a lot when I met her. And
No.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of her. But yeah, Taylor Swift, I enjoy Taylor Swift's music. I think 1989 has the most songs on it that I know and that I enjoy singing along to. So we'll go with that.
I think that's the right answer. Yeah, we went to Seattle. We didn't have to go to Paris. We went to Seattle, and it's an amazing concert. You're gonna absolutely love that.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
What's your biggest inspiration in fashion? You got a style. What's your
Yeah.
biggest inspiration?
Probably like me in my early 20s. No, basically, I'm 40 years old and I like to dress like I'm not, but I like just band t-shirts or just, I'm a t-shirt jeans kind of gal, but you gotta have the nice specs. I used to rock a whole bunch of different colors, and then my eyesight changed and I bought a bunch of new glasses and I didn't like any of them. So I kept the pairs that I liked and never replaced them. So, yeah, and I always wear a hat. Like that's just been my thing. I like to just like show off local brands. Like this is a local Dallas brand, a local Menace. They're my homies. I just like to support local fashion, local like t-shirt companies, local like pop punk or skater type of clothes or whatever. I always wearing the checkerboard Vans. Like this is just like me out of like walking out of high school and here I am. But yeah, that's my style.
I love it. I love it. What do you love most about discovering vintage items? I know that's been a thing for you.
It's just been really cool to see the kind of stuff that you can actually go out and find. Like, it's kind of like fishing. When I was a kid, I used to love to fish. It would be a lot of just sitting around and waiting. And then when you finally get something to bite and then you finally get to reel something in, you're like, it's like the most amazing feeling in the world as like an 8-year-old. And so now at this age, I'm out like, I feel like my granddad, he used to have a shed full of like junk in the backyard. And I feel like I'm getting that way because my wife was going through some stuff and her dad ended up passing away from pancreatic cancer, but she wasn't around a lot because she was in El Paso with him. And I needed a hobby. I needed something to do to kind of like get my brain off of all this bad stuff that was happening. And going out and finding stuff was like, I don't know. It got me out of the house. It was oddly satisfying. I like found a hat that I knew immediately was going to be $200 and I sold it for $200. Like it was a shark's tooth Houston Oilers hat. And
Nice.
it was like the biggest thing I like made me shake and all this stuff. But I've got all kinds of like crazy vintage stuff. I've got vintage luggage up here. I have all just a vintage metronome. Like, why do I need that? I don't know. And someday I'll get rid of it. But like, just a bunch of random stuff. It's just really fun to come across. Like, somebody thought this was trash, but I think it's cool or worth something.
It's rad. I love it. No, I think that's really cool. What's your all-time favorite TV show?
Don't laugh, everybody. But it's Glee. The television show Glee.
I'm laughing, sorry. No, that's awesome. That's great.
I know that's ridiculous, and people
That's
are probably
awesome.
like, "What the hell?" And how old were you when you were watching Glee? Yeah, I'm one of those people that like only knows the Glee version of songs. Like you could say like this is Billy Joel song, and I'll be like, "You mean not the
Nope.
Rachel Berry sang that in episode 4 of season 3 of like."
Oh.
Yeah, that was definitely me. I had a little period. Plus, I had a huge crush on the girl that played Santana and Naya Rivera, and so like that kind of led me to keep watching that show too, even when it really started to suck. But yeah, I would say that, and then like obviously, if I wasn't going to say that, it was going to be something like the OC. So
Okay.
that's my jam.
There you go. What's your all-time favorite movie?
10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, that's
So
good.
it reminds me of high school. I remember,
Yeah.
going to the theater and watching it. I was a big Julia Stiles fan at the time,
Yeah.
and it's got a lot of clever one-liners in it and jokes, and I don't know. It puts a smile on my face whenever I watch it.
Well, if you ever make it up to Seattle, I'll take you to Tacoma. I'll show you where that was filmed. The
That's
stadium.
so.
It's fun seeing that.
That's dope.
How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
Sports movie, probably A League of Their Own.
Nice.
I just remember watching that growing up, like as like a movie that my mom not made us watch, but like a movie that my mom watched all the time. And it just kind of stuck with me. And like
Yeah.
Gina Davis is I think she's dope. So like it was just a kind of perfect movie. Tom Hanks, obviously, great guy. So Madonna, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so much fun stuff about that movie.
Yeah, it was that was even Rosie O'Donnell in that
Rosie
was
O'Donnell,
amazing,
it
right?
was
Right.
great in that movie.
Yeah, a great movie for sure. Now I'm setting you up on this one. I know the answer what you're gonna say, but who's a better rapper, Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac?
Yeah, I saw this and I was like, "Are we kidding? It's Biggie Smalls." Yeah, Notorious B.I.G. That's my dude. So yeah,
So who's a better band, Good Charlotte or Blink 182?
Blink 182 is my Blink
Look at this. Look at this.
182.
So that's leading to this.
Yeah,
Biggie Smalls or Blink 182? One's got to go, one
I
stays.
know. I have to go with Blink 182 is the champion because I've seen them live. No offense to Biggie, but Biggie is no longer with us. Rest in peace, Biggie. Yeah, it's been a while. Um, Biggie's music's been so influential on just me and just like all the rappers that I look at and love their music. Like they always say Biggie, right? Like Biggie's the GOAT. And same thing for like Blink 182 being like the GOAT of pop punk music, right?
Yeah.
And they just put on such an awesome show and their music is just so fun. Like you can't not like feel excited when you listen to like all the small things, or you go back and
Yeah. Yeah.
watch that video or whatever, and you just laugh and reminisce about the olden days and the fun days and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. And yeah, Blink 182 definitely.
Okay, I think that's the right answer. Blink 182 is amazing. I think they're fantastic. So I think it's a great answer. What are you most grateful for at this time?
I'm most grateful for at this time, first and foremost, my wife. That's the most great. For her letting me do what I'm doing right now. Like I'm gonna get emotional about this too, but for her to back me the way she is and have my back, support me, encourage me, help me out when I'm having anxiety, and calm me down and tell me things are going to be okay, and you have it planned out. It's good. She's first and foremost the thing that I'm most thankful for right now. And I'm most thankful for just everybody like you and everyone else in this community that has been nothing but supportive. Like it's hard going through a change like this. And I sound like I'm 40 years old. I'm not going through any changes except for my job, my career here. But it's hard. It's hard. And
Yeah.
to have the support and the love and the friendship and the guidance and just to have people I can reach out to when I'm having a bad day. It's just, it means more to me than anything else. Like it just does.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And again, I love that she's there for you. I love the community's there for you. I think again, the sky's the limit. It's exciting to see where things are going to go in the future for you. Can you name a few people that have just had a huge impact on you along the way in the fantasy space?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ryan Hallam. I know we talked about him with Fighting Chance, but he's number one at like he's the reason why like I started writing. He gave me a shot. And so I can't say anything more than like he's a bad, awesome, rad dude. Like there's so many words that you can use to describe him. I just love that. Russ Fisher, he's been he's one of my best friends in this community, and he has been nothing but helpful. He listens to all my questions. He gives me answers. He guides me in the right direction. He was the first guest on my podcast. Like that guy means the world to me. Mike over with South Harmon, Mike Crystal. He's just been so great on this journey. He's just reached out to me and made sure that things are going good and helped me on this journey. And we've come up with ideas, and it's just, I feel like he and I just connect very well. There's been so many. I mean, her fantasy football obviously was number one. Brandon Marianne
Yeah.
Lee, I met her at a draft when it was in Dallas or Arlington. I met her at the draft, and she was just super rad. So many people in this space, though. I mean, y'all know who you are. You mean the world to me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of unfair for me to even ask that question truly because I'm sure you could go on for hours
Any
and
and
hours
everyone
and
that I've
hours,
interacted
right? I
with.
mean, and I could too, and so yeah, I mean, there's so many great people, and I'm just thrilled that we've found this community because
Mhm.
it's a special place. It's a special place for sure. Anybody that's looking to get into content creation, wanting to get more involved in the fantasy space, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, my first piece of advice is go listen to Get Real with Kacey Kasem. If you, I just said that just like I read it off when I'm doing my intro, but yeah, Get Real with Kacey Kasem. It just has so many different stories from so many different people, and you you can learn different ways of doing things and adapt things to how you do things. But if you're putting out content or you want to put out content, then just doing it. I know that's a cliche thing as well, but just do it. Even if you're just doing it for fun and you're doing it for yourself, just do it, because putting things out into the world and sharing your thoughts, like, that's awesome. That is awesome. Taking that step, that is awesome. That is brave. That is awesome. Awesome. Reach out to me, reach out to people who have been on my show. Most of them are like, yes, please, reach out to me. We are all here to help. So just please, and thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Just do it and connect with people, right? I mean, that's kind of what it
Mhm.
comes down to, right? I love that. Tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me. Everybody can find me over on Twitter or X or whatever you would like to call it today. It's not funny anymore to say that, but I'm saying it anyway. At the Kacey Kasem. It's spelled Kacc, the letter C, not S, but CEYKASEM. So at the Kacey Kasem. The podcast is at getreal_pod. You can hear Get Real wherever you listen to your podcast. So subscribe, download, and let me know that you listen, because that's one of the best things. That's one of the best feelings in the world, is having somebody say that they listened to your podcast. Thank you so much. SundayDreamersClub.com for fantasy football inspired t-shirts, or you can search on Etsy. You can do that as well. It'll show up. And writing with Rotoballer, putting out content with South Harmon FF, and also with Fantasy Six Pack. And I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So I just appreciate everybody. And I appreciate you, Kevin, for letting me come on here and have a conversation with you. You're a super awesome guy.
It was so much fun. Seriously, I had such a good time talking with you. Is there anything else that we haven't covered before we close things out?
No, I think we're pretty good. Just everybody stay kind and take care of yourselves. Make sure that you don't spread yourself too thin. Be kind to yourself. And I thank you so much for giving me this time, Kevin.
Of course. Such an inspiring story. Hopefully, people will connect with that and follow your stuff, because you've done such a great job over the years, and your content's just filled with so much authenticity and passion for fantasy and passion for people. So definitely recommend people check your work out. Can't wait to see you in Canton. Looking
Right.
forward to seeing Canton. Have a great time at the Scott Fishbowl live drafts. And we'll see you later on in the summer.
All righty. You have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.